The air inside the Kremlin was heavy, not with tension, but with history. Around the oval table of power, diplomats shifted in their seats, unsure of the moment that was unfolding. At the center stood two men, one a former KGB officer turned geopolitical tactician, the other a revolutionary soldier from the red dust of the Sahel, Vladimir Putin and Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The room was silent as Traoré reached into a velvet-lined case and pulled out a folded uniform. But this was no ordinary gift. It was sewn from Burkina Faso's military heritage olive green, hand-stitched, adorned with insignia from both modern anti-colonial units and ancestral warrior clans. The inner lining bore a motto in Murray: "He who carries the land on his back bows to no one." Traoré stepped forward and placed the uniform in Putin's hands. The Russian president, seasoned and composed, looked at it, then looked up. Their eyes met. In that moment, no words were spoken. But the silence was louder than speeches. It was a handshake without hands, a vow without paper, a signal without noise. What had just been exchanged was not fabric, it was loyalty, it was alignment, it was a message broadcast without microphones to every capital watching. And somewhere in a glass tower in Paris, and perhaps a policy room in Brussels, someone exhaled sharply. Because what they feared the most was no longer speculation. It was uniformed. It was standing. And it had just been recognized. As photographers tried to snap discreet frames, the Russian president motioned for them to stop. "Not yet," he said. "This is not for the headlines. This is for history." He carefully unfolded the uniform. The emblem embroidered on the right shoulder was unfamiliar to most in the room. An ancient West African symbol of truth before power, said to belong to the Mossi warriors who had once defied invading kingdoms. On the collar, two gold stripes woven not in European design, but in geometric Sahelian style, representing earth and blood. Putin held the jacket to the light, studying every detail. Then, in an unspoken gesture of understanding, he nodded toward Traoré and handed the uniform to his personal aide, not to lock it away in a museum, but to preserve it for official use. A gesture reserved only for gifts of state significance. Later that night, at a closed-door press briefing, Kremlin officials confirmed that the uniform would be archived alongside military artifacts of Russia's closest wartime allies. The message was unmistakable. Burkina Faso was no longer a periphery state. It had crossed the threshold. The shockwaves hit Western capitals before sunrise. In Paris, the foreign ministry scrambled to draft a response. "It's only symbolic," one aide tried to say. But the silence from higher-ups told another story. Because deep down, they knew symbolism was precisely the battlefield they had been losing. They had offered loans. Traoré had offered loyalty. They had sent envoys. Traoré had sent a message. And now Putin had answered. Across Africa, the image went viral. Traoré, upright and calm, with his hand on his heart. Putin, holding the uniform with both hands, his expression unreadable. Social media lit up with hashtags. Hashtag Africa stands. Hashtag New Alliances, Amdashan Uniform of Sovereignty. But the deeper unease in the West wasn't about optics. It was about what might come next. If one African leader could stand eye to eye with Putin and be treated as an equal, not as a recipient of aid, but as a partner in reordering the world, then others might follow. If Burkina Faso's symbol of resistance had just been stitched into global power realignment, what country would be next? Somewhere in Washington, a strategist stared at the photo and whispered, "We just lost more than influence. We lost the narrative." Back in the Kremlin, Traoré quietly returned to his quarters. He did not boast. He did not brief the press. Instead, he opened a small notebook, and beneath the date, he wrote one sentence. "A thread sewn with honor holds stronger than iron." And in that stillness, far from cameras and applause, a new chapter of African sovereignty was written not in treaties, but in thread. In a high-security wing of the Quai d'Orsay, the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs, the atmosphere was brittle. The room was dim, the windows sealed, and the phones, all encrypted, had not stopped ringing. But no one was answering. They were watching. On the main screen, the footage looped. Putin, standing in Red Square, solemnly holding the Burkinabe uniform gifted by Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a symbol of defiance. A gesture once reserved for old Soviet comrades, and now given to a 36-year-old African revolutionary who had expelled French troops less than 2 years prior. Foreign Minister Pierre Laurent stood with his hands clasped tightly behind his back. "We underestimated him," he muttered. An advisor, pale and tense, responded without looking up. "Sir, it's not just him. It's what he represents. We're losing not one country, but the entire Francophone architecture." Inside the Élysée Palace, President Emmanuel Macron had received the same clip on his secure tablet. He watched it silently. His advisors waited. When it ended, he tapped the screen once, closed the device, and spoke 2 words. "C'est terminé." It's over. "What do you mean?" one aide asked, alarmed. Macron turned, his face a blend of fatigue and fury. The illusion, the handshake, the development aid, the military bases, the language, the currency, the media, all of it. Traoré just burned the last bridge and Putin handed him the match. Within hours, emergency meetings were convened at the DGSE, France's external intelligence agency. Surveillance of Ouagadougou was intensified. Analysts pulled satellite images of Russian aircraft activity in the region. Others reviewed intercepted communications from AES, the Alliance of Sahel States. The question was no longer, can we regain influence, but what are they planning next? One classified memo, later leaked to an investigative journal, read, "If Burkina Faso succeeds in anchoring itself outside of French influence and survives politically, economically, and militarily, then Mali, Niger, and even Senegal will no longer fear the consequences of exiting la francophonie. This is not a diplomatic setback. This is a strategic fracture." Meanwhile, French media struggled to spin the narrative. Some called it a ceremonial courtesy exaggerated by social networks. Others labeled Traoré a populist strongman propped up by Moscow. But none of it stuck, because the image spoke louder than the headlines. A president of a former colony gifting his uniform the highest symbol of military identity to a former superpower and standing not beneath but beside him. France was not just being removed from the table, it was being erased from the invitation list. One senior French diplomat reportedly told colleagues, "We thought we had time. We thought Africa would wait for us to change, but Traoré didn't wait. He moved, and we were watching the wrong theater." Back in Paris, Macron convened a closed-door summit with select members of the National Assembly. His proposal, a total re-evaluation of France's African posture, fewer speeches, fewer conditions, fewer illusions. But many knew it was too late. Burkina Faso had not just pivoted, it had pivoted in public, with cameras, on Red Square. And that pivot sent tremors through every French embassy from Dakar to Djibouti.